Today I have a demo of rapid setup software running on an HPE ProLiant ML30 Gen10 server. I'll be running the demo through ILO Remote Management Console. I've powered on the server, and while we wait for it to boot up, let me describe a little bit about what Rapid Setup does. It's an automatic deployment software for HPE ProLiant 300 series and below, except for the microserver, because ILO 5 is required for this. Rapid Setup automatically detects the disk drive controller and drives, and then makes a configuration recommendation for that controller and drives. It also deploys the OS automatically. Here's the options screen where I can select intelligent provisioning by pressing F10. I can either click on the highlighted intelligent provisioning or wait for it to automatically start, which I'll do here. Now it's booting up, and once it's done, I'll have two options for deploying my server. First is the traditional intelligent provisioning, which includes numerous steps for deploying things like the drives, the controller, operating system, and more. The second option is Rapid Setup, and this will automate these choices. This is designed for SMBs who are deploying a server to make the process simple and automatic. Here are the two setup options. I can hover over the two options and I'll get a brief description of what they each are. And I'll select Rapid Setup. Again, the server I'm using for this demo is an HPE ProLiant ML30 Gen10 with 4 bays that are populated with 1 terabyte large form factor drives. Rapid Setup is fetching this information about what I have and determining its recommendations. First, here's the Rapid Setup end user license agreement. We'll have to click Accept to continue. The next screen gives you information about deploying Azure services and Office 365 through HPE PointNext. And you can do that if you are setting up a hybrid cloud type of environment. And here's an overview of the Rapid Setup steps, which I've mentioned are setting up the drives and controllers with the RAID configuration, selecting your OS, and installing it. I'll click Continue. Rapid Setup can install the OS from DVD, USB flash drive, a network share folder, or even the internet in the case of ClearOS. If the server is connected to the network, you'll be prompted to tell Rapid Setup if you need to set up proxy server settings or not. Make your settings as needed and press Continue. By default, Rapid Setup will attempt to connect to the internet to determine if firmware updates are available. And an internet connection is also necessary if you intend to install ClearOS over the web. If your server is not connected to the network, the proxy menu will not appear, and you will not be able to automatically update firmware, install the OS from a shared network folder, or download ClearOS from the web, in which case you would need to use either a USB thumb drive or a DVD. Notice the pop-up notification in the bottom left of the screen. Rapid Setup will notify you if the server is connected to the network and able to reach the firmware update site and the ClearOS download site. These notices disappear quickly, so if you don't want to automatically update firmware, you've got to click on the firmware notification and opt out of the firmware update before it disappears. Rapid Setup is making a recommendation for our E208i Smart Array controller with the 4 drives. The initial recommendation is for RAID 5. If I want to create a separate drive for the OS, you can see I can click on the checkbox and I'm given an updated recommendation with 2 RAID 1 drives. One for the OS, the other for my data. If I had more drives or empty drives, you would see that, and I have a key at the top of the screen that helps us figure out what exactly I have and what's being recommended. If I had multiple different types of drives, Rapid Setup would group them together and recommend an array for each disk group. Okay, so we're going to move forward from here. I select Continue, and I have this screen where I can pick my operating system or run some maintenance options that I have. I have 3 OS options that I can install, either Windows Server, VMware, and ClearOS as my options. I'm going to pick Windows. You can see I'm given the options of where the OS is, either on a USB or DVD or on some local shares. I'm going to go back and click on ClearOS so you can see what options I have there. Here I can either use USB or DVD, and I'm also given the option of downloading it from the internet. A local share isn't an option for ClearOS. Now it's going to work on installing the OS. It will reboot a few times through the process of deploying the OS. If you didn't opt out to cancel the firmware updates during the array configuration screen, and Rapid Setup determines that firmware updates are available, the firmware update process would begin before you log into the OS for the first time. Note that the firmware update process can take several minutes, and your server may reboot one or more times before you can log in for the first time. When this is complete, it would come up to my Windows Server login where I would use my sysadmin login credentials to start running my operating system. And that's it. We've walked through this process slowly to explain things, but if you were doing this from beginning to end, once we start running Rapid Setup, this process takes about 3 or 3.5 minutes. So it saves time, and it's a lot faster than a traditional server installation. Now that's my demo of Rapid Setup. To learn more, go to hpe.com/info/ProLiant.